Hello, my name is A.G. Tan, and I'm an expert in sustainability and ESG reporting, and also in financial planning and analysis. Let's dive right in. This presentation is the one that I wish I had been able to attend when I started. It would have saved me a lot of time trying to figure out how to connect all the dots. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. But first, let's take a quick look at what most people think this is about. This slide here is the reason why a zillion software vendors and consultants are bombarding everybody with sustainability topics right now. And I do appreciate the irony that I'm on it, right? But there's a lot more to sustainability than greenhouse gas emissions. But you will notice that on this slide, which is a timeline of when certain regulations, reporting regulations are going to come into effect, you'll notice that a lot of it is about emissions. And emissions is really where all the regulators are starting because the concerns about climate change and risks from climate change is really looming large in everybody's sight at the moment. And so emissions is not where it's going to end, but it is where it's going to start. And so if you do business in California or the European Union, these reports are going to begin to be due next year in 2025. Now, if you're looking at this and you're saying, well, I'm in finance and so this is the emissions, we have people who do that. This is not my problem. Look again, the top right-hand corner of this. And we're going to talk more about this, but I just want to tell you why you're hearing so much about sustainability right now. And it's because this is not just about reporting emissions. This is about doing financial risk assessments of emissions. This is about the financing of your transition plans to a cleaner economy. So for example, let's say you're a transportation company and you have a fleet of old trucks that you now think you're going to replace with electric trucks. Well, there's a cost to that. Have you factored that into your financial planning? Are your transition plans in alignment with all your other financial plans? Can you afford it? So transition plan, scenario analysis, and then the other thing that they want is they want an explanation of gaps in your reporting. So there is no way for any company to be able to deliver on this without working together with the people in their companies that already know about the emissions, but the emissions people don't know about how to report on the financial stuff. So it has to be a joint effort. And the other thing I'm going to bring up, I just mentioned, this is just a little teaser. We'll talk more about what Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions are later. But the teaser is that Scope 3 emissions is reporting on emissions from your products after they've been sold, from your customers, from your vendors. It's upstream and downstream emissions produced in your supply chain. How are you going to collect that data to be able to report it? The only answer is that you have to start now. So this is the one that's really, to be honest, freaking a lot of people out. Now, even Qubit, which is a privately held 100-person company, we're not publicly traded. We're not at 500 million in revenue. I wish we were, but we're not. But we're already getting surveys and questionnaires from our customers asking us questions that relate to their future need to report on Scope 3 emissions. So this is going to affect everyone down the line. But before we get to the emission story, I just want to talk a little bit about finance. I want to talk about how finance operates at the center of the business. And those of you who know me, and I know, I recognize a bunch of people in the audience, you know that sometimes I do meander, but believe me, there is a point. So hopefully you'll trust there is a point to this. So the first thing I want to say is that finance, and I hope we can agree, finance is the one place in a business where everything comes together. Finance has the data that tells the full story of all parts of the business. And finance basically lives at the center of that tension between collecting data for compliance reporting versus collecting data for innovation and growth. Finance also lives at that place at the intersection of
of strategy and execution. So, for example, when your business leaders come up with a strategy, finance provides the data and analysis to support the process. Once the strategy is set, finance measures the metrics that power execution. This is why we have plans, and this is why we have forecasts, so that we can measure how we're doing. When we're planning new ventures and new products, finance does the analysis to figure out the ROI, to figure out what it's going to cost and whether it makes actual sense to go in that direction, right? Now, what it takes to have a successful finance organization that's able to pull together all this data and be at the center is this concept of, well, extended planning and analysis, or FP&A, which, if you've been following Hubert, you've seen this slide before. But it's a combination of things, right? Certainly data strategy is part of it, but you also need vision, leadership. You need a concept of business process that crosses all the silos of your business. You need to use appropriate technology, and sometimes you even need to go and use Excel. But at the end of the day, the way to look at it is as a journey, right? Nobody can have all the data and all the analysis and everything available to them, from day one. And if you're a Hubert customer, you know that you're on this journey, or we're on this journey with you. So this slide sort of expands a little bit more on that concept. It's a slide from a Gartner note that talks about an FP&A, financial planning and analysis maturity model. And I know there's a lot here, but basically we're looking from, you look at that thick blue line that goes down the middle. We're looking at companies that are at level 1. They're at the beginning of the journey. And then stretching all the way up to the more mature companies over on the right at level 5. Now, most companies live, kind of somewhere in the middle. And certainly, I know for a fact that most Hubert customers are somewhere in the middle. But the level 1 companies are typically still in very manual spreadsheet-based processes for their planning and so on. Level 2 companies have implemented planning software. So if you're a Hubert customer, that could be IBM Planning Analytics or Pigment or Workday Adaptive, which are the main ones that Hubert works with. And then over on the right is where you're taking it to a new level of having integrated data strategies across the silos of your business. So, this enables you to be really agile, to have continuous integrated planning. You can leverage advanced analytics capabilities, AI tools, and predictive, and so on. So at that point, when you're on the right, you've got HR data, you've got supply chain data, all of them kind of coming together. If you're somewhere in the middle between level 2 and level 3, level 4, you're sort of on a path to getting there, right? So the point being that most companies are somewhere on this journey for planning, for analysis, for reporting, making better business decisions, and for driving growth. Now, what's all this got to do with sustainability? I didn't warn you at the beginning that I was going to bring you guys on the journey. So please hang in for just a couple more slides. Now, let's drill down a little bit into a very typical FP&A kind of model. So I just came up with a very simple model that hopefully everyone will be able to relate to. This is a simple headcount planning model for a big box retailer. And let's say the retailers maybe got several hundred stores now. Now, we can easily get assumptions of an average wage and benefit cost per store or per region. And then you've got the headcount per store, right? And so all you need, this is a very simple model, all you need is a little bit of multiplication and addition, and you have a model that tells you what your people costs are going to be in your stores. So you can take your actual heads per store, that gets you your starting point for your plan, and then you can do what if scenario analysis, right? You can play with the headcount number, and you can play with the cost number. Inflation's running at 5% or whatever, and add all that in, and you have a nice little model that you can you can use to anticipate people. Now, most companies get a little bit more fancy than that. So here's an example where you might break it out between part-time and full-time employees. At this point, part-timers, full-timers, they model slightly differently. And perhaps at this point, because let's assume that you have invested in a piece of planning software and you're not only doing this in Excel, maybe we can say that your store managers, you've got, 500 stores, your 500 store managers, or your regional managers, maybe you have 20 regions. So your 20 regional managers have a better feel for what the part-time, full-time breakout of parameters will be in their regions. And so you can farm out this kind of modeling to them and give them a nice little interface where they can play their what-if game so that they can come up with a plan, right? So this gives you a better level of accuracy. It gets you sort of more engagement from people across your business. At the end of the day, because you have invested in that planning software that we talked about earlier, it all automatically just adds up into your corporate plan, and the leadership can have a look at it, and you can start doing some top-down analysis and so on. So to be frank, this is kind of where I think most Qubit customers are at and where most companies are at. But there is another level we can get to. And this is where, let's say you're up there at level 4 or level 5, and now you can start layering on the idea of let's say, capacity, right? So have you ever walked out of a store because the checkout lines were too long, because they didn't, have enough people working at the checkout counter? And then the other aspect of it is, well, somebody else in your company may be doing a demand plan for the store, but your headcount planners may not really have visibility into your demand plan, but your demand plan has a real impact on what your revenue plan should be. And frankly, it's all kind of interconnected. Now, this is, probably, hopefully, it looks like a reasonable thing to do. And curiously, I think it is the case that we actually have some customers at Qubit that aren't going to this level. So Justin, am I correct?
No, you are. We recently did a project just like this.
Yeah. So this is the next level, right? So this is a little bit more on the leading edge. Would you agree, Justin? But people aren't getting.
They are. They are. Not everybody's ready for this, but so on.
Right. Now, thank you for confirming that. And so, but obviously, this adds more complexity to it, right? You can't do this in spreadsheets. You need to really have set up your data strategy to allow for more automation. You need your models to be more automated, and so on. But this is absolutely possible and doable, and people are doing it. And as a result, they're getting, essentially better forecasts, better plans, and better ability because they're modeling it to kind of play with scenarios, right? Now, there's another layer we can put on here. Let's keep going. Because we know that there have been issues with staffing. There was the complaints about the big resignation or quiet quitting and so on, people not wanting to work, or at least that's what people were saying. But the reality is that at the end of the day, things like retention rates and recruitment costs and opportunity costs do play a big role in something that requires staff, like out of big box retail, right? So if everyone's walking out of the store because the checkout lines are too long, because the shelves haven't been, stocked, that actually costs money. So what if you had retention rate data and recruitment cost data and opportunity costs, and you could layer that into your model as well? Now, it turns out, and this is where we're getting into sustainability, turns out that retention rates are actually a sustainability metric that a lot of companies already report on. Maybe not the finance people, maybe it's coming out of HR or the sustainability people, but a lot of companies are already collecting retention rate data because it is part of some of the sustainability standard framework requirements. Right? So the data exists and it's a hard metric. Now, you could say, well, sure, that's interesting. It's useful. We can track it or whatever. But, does it really matter from a finance point of view? Because you really don't want to overcomplicate your financial model, or do you? Right? So at the end of the day, it depends on how material, right? So here's a simple example. Let's just look at one store. These numbers are made up, right? So let's imagine that the average wages per employee in the store is $50,000 a year, and your target staffing level is 20 per store, right? So your total wages work out to a nice round number of $1 million. Now, what are the replacement costs? What's the cost of replacing one employee? So let's just randomly come up with an assumption of 6 months. So let's say it costs 6 months worth of wages to replace one employee, and that includes training costs and hiring costs and all of that stuff, right? Maybe it also includes the opportunity costs, because if you're short an employee, then there might be business that you're not getting, and so on. So let's just try the 6 months idea. And then let's look at turnover rate. So turnover is just the inverse of retention, right? So 1 minus retention gives you turnover. So let's say you have, 25% of your employees need to be replaced. For this target staffing level of 20 per store, it's like $125,000. And if, your turnover is way higher, like 75%, it is going to be $375,000 to get your employee, your staffing level up to where it needs to be. Now that's like an additional, 38% on your costs. Now, if we look at another scenario where the replacement cost in terms of months of wages was 9 months, then obviously the picture is even worse if you have high turnover, right? So there are some numbers here. If these assumptions were true, then hopefully you would agree that this is a material metric. And the other thing about it is that if you agree that it's a material metric, hopefully you can also agree that something like employee retention ought to be something that you could do something about, especially if it costs that much, right? So you can train your people. Like if you're, you can train your managers to make things more pleasant. You can pay people a little bit more. You can change your incentive structures. There are lots of things that you can do that are within your control to try and improve your retention. And in case you were wondering, thanks to Google, it turns out that those assumptions are not crazy at all. They're actually very realistic, especially in retail. And so my point being that I don't think any of our retail customers, certainly not in the HR models that I've been involved in, have really taken this into account, but perhaps they should. So the point we're trying to make here is that sustainability data is not sort of like nice to have data to make you look good. Sustainability data is business data. And just like operational data and financial data, sustainability data can have real impacts, on the bottom line. And on the left-hand side here, you can see some examples of sustainability data that actually has a connection with your business. So first point is sustainability is business data. Sustainability data is business data. Please remember that. The second thing is if you're going to start turning this sustainability data, and you've heard the term, that data is gold, especially in the AI world. Well, data is gold, but you need that data in the form that you can actually access so it can be useful to you. So having a useful, workable, practical data strategy is really the key to making your business data work for you, whatever your business data is.